if you think about the average life expectancy right now, it's even across the world, it's over 70 years old, and most people in Australia will have probably around 80 years or so. But 80 years is around 4,000 weeks, and if you think about it, it's scarily short, or maybe it's enough time to do things. And the important thing is to think about events or behavior or your achievement in a way that you can do compound interest kind of strategy, I think. It's probably interesting to note that in the case of the general relativity by Einstein, he proposed it around 1904 or 5 or something like that, right? Around that time. But the critical, the reason why I'm going to talk about this is related to our career pathway discussion or future of the psychology kind of thing so far. Psychology and consciousness research. And then the critical moment came around 1920. Do you guys know what happened around that time? Any guess? Or Alex, do you know?
The solar eclipse?
Yeah, exactly. So this is a kind of the prediction-based or almost like a registered report of the prediction between the Newtonian physics versus general relativity about the solar eclipse. It's published as first author was Dyson, 1920. And then also quantum domain, pretty much all the theory has been established with Heisenberg and so on around 1992. 1922, and then again the moment came around 1935. It's almost 12 years after. Do you guys know what happened around that time? Maybe Alex again.
Was it that point that they realized that the matrix and wave equations are equivalent?
That actually came earlier. So this part was...
Is it like EPR paradox?
Exactly. So EPR paradox is the one that Einstein and other guys actually pointed out that this quantum thing is actually interesting, but it doesn't actually make sense with respect to reality. And then this it's almost, I think, a parallel to this consciousness paradox kind of thing. Like if you assume consciousness exists or not, or qualia, how can you actually take it seriously? Blah blah blah, and it goes on and on and on at the level of philosophical discussion until here comes this thing, 1964. What is it? Does anybody know?
That's John Bell. Bell.
This is time. It took almost like 40 years for some genius to come up with a testable hypothesis, actually in support with the Einstein theory in his own, at that point. And then by proving that nothing can violate this inequality, it means that quantum mechanics is something that is flawed, right? But then again, another 80 years passes. But from here, that's actually interesting. It took almost 40 years, and also even 30 years after pointed out about this critical problem, the theory comes back, and then after 80 years, what happened? That's the first demonstration of this Clauser's of this violation of Bell inequality. And that's the Nobel Prize this year. And then, but there was some kind of loophole, and then that was perfected by this, another physicist aspect, and that's also second, Nobel Prize winner. But then still, this part is, I think, interesting. is far from the empirical application, right? This empirical application came around this, 1997, quantum teleportation by Zellinger. And Nobel Prize usually requires both fundamental, discovery together with, widespread application. And this one, again, is another Nobel Prize winner this year. So what I think needs to happen in the consciousness is also something around this time, right? Like, some philosophical, conundrum. Maybe it's a Chalmers hard problem, pointing out, that the consciousness cannot be, solved in the science. And then maybe this, prediction by Bell is similar to IIT, like, theoretical prediction. And then from here, maybe although, there are like, thousands of, years has passed since the conundrum of philosophical transition of consciousness, but maybe there is a critical experimental, verification of IIT, or empirical application of this IIT-based prediction on consciousness, artificial consciousness, or potentially replacing part of our brain with artificial networks to generate a different kind of qualia. I think that's more interesting aspects of the test of the IIT. So this also tried to address also my view in answering Kalam's question about what will be the future of this consciousness study. Is that
I think that's a great way of thinking of maybe we're 60, 70 years off really finding that equivalent. I mean, the Higgs boson would probably be like the extra step, only very recently, which really cemented the theory. But I suppose what feels maybe a bit disparaging is even Aristotle was wondering about maybe what you could interpret as the hard problem a couple of thousand years ago. And we've been theorizing of it ever since. Does that mean that we're any, further away or close? I feel like not at all, but I mean, we have the means to test it now, which Aristotle never did. But, the theories, the philosophical stage of this theory has gone on for some time, which I suppose, I mean, that's kind of interesting. I feel like it's always iteration in theories, but I definitely do agree with you though, that IIT is kind of seems to be the one that we can move forward with the most. Yeah.
And one thing also, I should also point out here is that the theory also drives what needs to be measured, right? I mean, Kalam, as you said, we still don't know anatomical connection or synaptic plasticity mechanism, and all of these things, the microstructure and so on. That's actually kind of, easy to imagine what needs to be done, right? But it's also interesting to know that, after Bell inequality was, invented, what's necessary to prove whether the, quantum mechanics is true or not is not just crashing all these, small atoms into the high power, cyclotron or synchrotron and so on. And that's useful for other purpose, and that revealed something different, for sure. But if we know what needs to be measured to test the critical, theory, then, that requires different kind of methods. And that leads to different kind of, application like quantum information and so on. And that's nothing to do with this high power physics kind of, approach as well, right? So in my opinion, anatomical connections and also, a synaptic mechanism and so on will be very useful to understand the brain, how the brain works. But I doubt whether that's going to make a big breakthrough for consciousness research. What do you think, Alex?
Yeah, I share your intuition so often. And I like how I tried so hard with so many slides to convince all your students that they should study IIT and join our labs, but you did it here with one slide telling them that they can get a Nobel Prize. And that's true. You should join our labs.
Yeah, then I should keep these slides. Yeah. All right. So one of the reasons I put this kind of thing is that to realize also how fast the scientific progress can be in the future, and that also will change how you guys need to think about both research or academic kind of direction, as well as the research related non-academic position, and also something else as well. All of this underlying thing is the sort of theme of the class I wanted to kind of foster, the creativity. And the creativity should come together with the empirical testability. That's a kind of, I think useful framework that I think, Alex, you're also thinking about this reinventing yourself kind of framework, right? Like, even if you have a really great idea, general relativity, unless you can test it and make a prediction, you can't really convince other people. And same for this, if Taylor inequality was never tested by all other these guys, nothing has happened. So this domain of the things, you need both to come up with an ideas that you guys did with course assessment of this final proposal and so on, and then also you realize what kind of skills you need to develop to achieve or to track with this kind of questions. So Alex, do you have any kind of advice on this type of things through your maybe career path?
Yeah, I think that you set it up well. I think that if I were put in a time machine and were an undergraduate student again, and I would have the knowledge and the wisdom that I have now, I think what I would do differently, given that the times have changed, is that I think that things are moving much, much faster. Everything is moving much, much faster than when we were young. At the same time, I think actually we're also facing stagnation in a lot of areas. And that creates a very interesting tension that when it comes to your professional life, you're increasingly expected to deliver, and at the same time, you will run in increasing obstacles. So I think, so in science, I think that's very becoming very clear that the people that trained us, and especially the people that trained the people that trained us, they had very steady careers. And very often they picked one topic that they decided to study, and they studied that very often until the day that they died. And that has gone by the wayside. And it is because out of necessity. So the guy who discovered the electroencephalogram, the EEG of humans, it took him 8 years between the discovery and publication. If you do this today, you're going to be without a job. You will not get a PhD. You will not get your postdoc finished. You will not get tenure. So things are moving much more quickly, and it's challenging to adapt to this. At the same time, I always point out there are people among us that have grown up in a world without refrigerators, without microwaves, without televisions, without radios, without airplanes. And they're still around. In their lifetime, all of these things have changed. But the airplanes that we look at today, they're almost identical to the ones that flew our parents around in the 1960s. And so that shows that there is also stagnation. So there are fields where there is rapid development. A lot of it is in the online space, in the technology space, but in many other areas, things are not moving very quickly. And so I think that requires what you call reinventing yourself. And so that would be one piece of advice that I would throw out. If you think about your careers, don't think just linearly. Don't look at people, even like us, who might have had a rather linear career up till this point, because it's probably not what will face you. And it's because it's already not facing us. So I think we are already being forced that we have to deviate from that linear trajectory that we've been on.
a good point to kind of widen the sort of perspective of or the catch of this discussion for a more broader audience of the student actually. Like yeah, so that if you go to different kind of university or rather than a research institute, as Alex said, there are many different kind of options available as well. One of them is that if you go to a university, then as a teaching assistant or postdoc or assistant professor, you will have an experience of teaching people about some kind of academic topic, and that may be, in a sense, it's a kind of the area of this stagnation, possibly, but it also may be the area that changes really quickly. I myself actually don't know, and as you may have noticed, that I'm doing a bit of the experimental kind of things about the teaching all the time here, like using YouTube or using different kind of methods and so on, online lecture delivery plus hybrid and so on. I don't know, what do you think, Alex, about the future of the teacher or research and teaching kind of position, and what's discussed among the US university?
Yeah, so I think you nailed it. I think that is where there's a lot of rapid change. And I think that YouTube, and I see you as a pioneer there, YouTube is, to me, proving very rapidly as a very strong teaching tool. So to be perfectly honest, I'm not reading much anymore. But I have a long queue of YouTube videos that I'm watching. And that's because it's almost like we're hijacking YouTube, what it was meant for, as scientists and as people that are interested in academic topics. Because the algorithm, what it does, it's trying to figure out what you're interested in and then deliver you even the most obscure videos that are relevant to you. And so if you're intellectually curious and you start using YouTube, not just for entertainment, but as a research tool, it's very powerful. And you can much quicker than by reading papers and books and discerning different materials, learn topics really well from the experts themselves. I mean, because we talked about John Bell a lot today, his talks are online on YouTube. You can watch him from the 1960s talk about these things. Yeah. So I think YouTube is changing things. I teach my students now how to set up a YouTube studio, how to edit videos using DaVinci Resolve. What is a good camera? What's a good microphone? I think those are skills that we will increasingly use. And I think that the boundary between the general public and academia itself is blurring as well. It's in a good way. I think that open science is really becoming more open, more democratic, more inclusive. And I think that YouTube is a big part of that we can share ideas and we can interact using social media. It's almost like we're using it not the way it was intended to do, but it works really well. I think that's what we're slowly discovering. So yeah, I watch very closely. I think your experiments are really interesting. I would be interested actually to hear from your students what they think and how they like it.
What do you guys think about that YouTube-based teaching or learning?
I think I thought about this very strongly. I don't mean to co-opt it, but I've often thought about this because I started uni when there was still in-person lectures, and I've seen the entire switch. Personally, I find in-person lectures so much better, and I wish we still had them. I don't think there's any substitute. I think the human interaction, being able to ask questions, to be taught at a normal pace in a room full of people that also understand it, where you can talk to your colleagues afterwards, your peers rather, and you can form kind of personal connections. I don't think there'll ever be a substitute. And I do wish that it was back to the way it used to be. But I think that the YouTube aspect, like I love that. I think exactly what you're saying. I watch like all of these kinds of things, like the algorithm spewing, like, and it is very powerful. Things like Wikipedia and if you have a passion for it, you'll read it. But I think that students that want that will find that. And that kind of is something that you can find on your own. I don't think that you can be taught to want to seek out more information. I think either you do or you don't. And it's very difficult to force a student to do that. Not saying that that's what's happening here, but I think if a student wants it, they will go and find it because they believe in and they want to know more. difficult to instill that, I think. But I think when it comes to lectures, like there is something to be said about sitting and kind of watching videos like when it suits you. And, I try and sit and watch a 2-hour lecture and it probably takes me like 3 because I'm stopping and starting and taking notes and losing focus. But if you're crammed in a room, like what else are you going to do? You have to kind of listen.
Does anybody have any other opinion or anything? I mean, I'm asking you guys to fill in a questionnaire about feedback on the lecture. By the way, I forgot to mention at the beginning of this lecture. But yeah, something like that. You said, Kalam, if you can write it in on that Google form, that would be really great. And the other thing I also wanted to touch upon is that you said, Kalam, and I think there will be probably some other people who are also interested in this kind of integration of arts and science aspect. This is going to be, really critical for the future as well. And I think also, the computational skills are related to this, empirical doing aspect of, research skills. If you take any kind of jobs or any kind of, research topic, computational skills will be really critical. I mean, understanding with math, like Alex said, is definitely important, but without testing your theory or your computational mechanism algorithm, and then use computer to do that. You don't need to now calculate it. So, you can do it on the computer, and then that will test your creativity by simulation and so on. That's really powerful. And things like, online MATLAB tools or whatever, which was not available for us, Alex and me. And it was much more harder to do it. But now, or at least within foreseeable future, if you're in the biology or psychology or neuroscience major with computational skills, I think your job security is quite strong. What do you think, Alex, about this?
Yeah, my thought on this is, in the end, it always boils down to money, right? So you want to make money as you leave uni, and you have to think about what makes the most money. The most money makes something that you only do once and that many, many people need and can use. And so the example that a lot of people usually talk about is discovery of a new drug or a vaccine, right? So you do once the work, and then you put it out in the millions, and everybody has to give you money. And so that is why software is so important and so powerful. You write a piece of software once, and then you can sell it again in the hundreds and the thousands or so on. So that is why if we look at our economy, what are the biggest companies in the world? They're all online companies, Google, Facebook, and so on, right? So yes, I think all of us will be expected to be computer literate to some degree at some point. So if you want to put time somewhere where for a skill that no matter what your job would be in the future, I agree. It should be learning how to program.
Yeah, and then you don't want to do the programming by yourself in the end, but as long as you understand the core thinking and so on with the computer programming or idea of how to the algorithm, then that's the sort of the core thing that you need to learn. And I hope that you guys to at least have a sense of what it's like to do the experiment and also analysis using this assessment criteria, one of them this year. And maybe also another thing that I also wanted to mention or touch that also may matter for other people is that no matter what kind of job you are going to take, or no matter what pathway you take, you will need to deal with this thing up and down of your life. And my advice, general advice is there are many advices about this, but one of the things is that you try not to compare yourself with other people. That's one easy kind of trap that scientists or highly competitive people tend to get trapped. But anything, Alex, do you have any suggestion or advice on this?
Oh, that's perfect. Yeah, I was about to say as well that I think that if I would go back to university, I would tell myself to stress out less. So life is, this sounds so cheesy, but life is really not just about your job. There's so many other things that are important, and you will do fine. And in fact, yeah, you should enjoy the ride, the ups and the downs. And yeah, if I totally agree with you that the key to finding happiness is to find it inside yourself and with the little things. Yeah, totally agree. I bought this watch that on the watch it says, "Remember, you will die." So each time I'm in a meeting and it's long and I look at the watch, it reminds me that time is very limited. And as you get older, you realize that brutally. So yeah, you want to use, we all only have that very brief moment of life. It goes by very, very quickly, and you really want to use it to the fullest. So Henri Poincaré, who I like a lot, in his book, he describes it. If you sit at a bonfire late at night and you see these tiny little sparks flying off of the fire, and they fly up into the night sky and then they go out, he says that's like a human life. It just comes out of nowhere, right? And it's this consciousness that illuminates the universe. Our consciousness is like we're part of the universe, and we look at it. We're part of it, but we look at it. Each time we look at the night sky, we are the universe looking at itself. But it's this little spark that flies and then eventually just goes off. So you really you should not. I know this sounds dark, but it's not. You should not be stressed at all. I hope also that the discussion we had today shows that the future is really bright, because there's so much to do and there's so much exciting stuff that's going on. So yeah, I hope that everybody feels positive about these outlooks.
Yeah, something that I didn't cover this year was about the meditation or to live in the moment, here and now. But this, what Alex said was written really long time ago by Seneca, the Greek philosopher. Like, life is too short to do. It was not him who said that, but it's not. Life is too short to do something, but too long not to do things. And also if you think about the average life expectancy right now, it's even across the world, it's over 70 years old, and most people in Australia will have probably around 80 years or so. But 80 years is around 4,000, weeks. And if you think about it, it's scarily short, or maybe it's enough time to do things. And the important thing is to think about kind of life events or behavior or your achievement in a way that you can do compound interest kind of strategy, I think. And that's what Alex said as this suggestion about money as well. If you do something once, and then if that just increase on its own over the time, then you are actually making time as your friend, not the enemy. And then something like living healthy or happy or exercising, all these things will accumulate around the age of 40 years old, like us, Alex and me. You will be amazed that if you see the people who are stressing their life through the research or work or whatever, they look terrible, in terms of happiness, family, and the health, and so on. And some of them start to die actually in our age. So, but it's also not the case that they did something wrong and that they die because of that. It's not like a determinism. But I would say there are many things that you can do which benefits over the time in a long run, and investing your time and effort, like reading the books about useful books, or searching across many different kind of information, over the internet, YouTube, that would be very useful. And also don't be afraid to be changed.
Yeah, I was just about to say that's the last thought that I had there, that even as a tenured professor, it's still scary to be on a YouTube video and things like that. But each time you do something like that to get slightly out of your comfort zone and you open yourself up to other people, in my experience, it always comes back positively to you. So I'd like to encourage everybody to don't stop yourself from being proactive. Be proactive. It's easy to follow somebody in their footsteps. It's always scary if you're the one who's making those first steps, and it's easier to stumble and fall. But you were the one who made those first steps. So trust in yourself and trust your gut. That would be, I think, my number one advice for any young person. The only bad decisions in my life was when I didn't trust my gut. And the best decisions in my life is when I did, even though everything else went against it, but I just went with my gut feeling. So I think it was actually Einstein who said that he thinks that the gut is underappreciated, even in physics. So go out and be yourself and just try things out, and you will be amazed how much comes positively back to you. So that would be my number one advice.
Yeah. This year I didn't actually cover this paper, but one of these loss of consciousness kind of studies done on the vegetative patients who eventually recovered into locked-in syndrome and also become possible to speak about their experience. Their introspection is that during this the most debilitating state of the life, they actually don't feel miserable. Most of them feel that during that time of the period of their life, it was actually positive because they could connect with a family and also think about what life is about, and many things that doesn't kill you actually makes you grow stronger. And that's also the case for even the brain trauma that makes you unconscious or unmobile for a really long time. And as Alex said, famous study on hospice, I think, revealed that the number one regret of the life is that you didn't live your life. Like if you didn't follow your gut feeling, if you didn't want to do what you wanted to do by following parents' advice or colleagues' pressure or whatever, then you'll regret it for the life. So yeah, I would say that kind of just go ahead and then try to integrate arts and science, and also learn computational skills and then do interesting things within or without outside of the science, whatever it is. All right. Anything else to add? Yeah,
that's good advice. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah. Anything else to add, Alex, or any other question from any audience? Otherwise, then maybe yeah. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you again. I really appreciate that opportunity, and it was a great pleasure.
I mean, we are also really grateful that you gave great talk and also discussion. This was one of the thing I wanted to do as well. It was great.
So okay, let me just at the end say that because I encourage people to be proactive. If you have any questions about the talk, or even about the career advice or life advice that we talked about, don't hesitate to email me, even if we didn't get a chance to talk here. So I'd be always happy to respond. So don't hesitate. You can find my email if you Google my name in Vanderbilt.
Thank you very much.